Hello and welcome. My name is Christina Wright, and my preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm an assistant professor of instruction in the College of Business at Ohio University, where my teaching focus is festivals, events, and entertainment management. I have the privilege today to sit down with longtime friend and colleague Jon Niemuth about the future of events in the sports and entertainment industry. A proud Panther graduate of the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, Jon has quickly become part of our Bobcat family here at OU. I guess there is something about those cats. Currently, Jon is vice president and director of AECOM Sports and Venues Practice in the Americas. We've known each other for more than a decade now, and I don't think that we've ever believed we would live through a global pandemic, let alone continue to operate sport facilities and events during these unprecedented times. Of course, we're naturally conspiracy theorists of everything that could potentially go wrong at a facility or event. But for something like COVID-19, no one seemed ready. Yet, AECOM was ready. In August 2020, we saw AECOM's return with confidence pandemic response support a professional league successful implementation of its playoff bubble. Certified industrial hygienists, biohazard expertise, and bubble protocols are all now on our industry's radar. Today, we're going to dive deeper into the future of events with the expert, Jon. So let's get started with a broad question, Jon. How has the pandemic impacted sporting events?
It's really accelerated some technologies and some fan enhancements, some broadcast enhancements in a way that I think are going to be really positive for the consumer, whether you're in person or a consumer of streaming or video, video broadcast. So I think in a lot of ways, as much as there's been clearly some really horrific impacts, job losses, economic devastation, all the downers, I think from an industry, it's really forced us to have to move pretty quickly with some technological innovations that I don't think we would have otherwise done, or it would have taken a lot longer to get to. And I think it's made people think a little bit more broadly about venue safety. I think we all understand the issues of physical attacks, terrorist attacks, that sort of bodily harm, property harm. But this is just another way that we can be smart about venue safety and security. And I think that's always a good thing, as a lot of our projects and a lot of the industry projects are also used for a variety of things, shelters, FEMA shelters, rally points, whatever it might be. These facilities are theoretically called into service for a variety of things, and we actually saw some of those plans being activated. And so, in some ways, it was nice to see those things stood up. Many ways, the buildings and the facilities designed as intended, and in some ways, we're able to adapt beyond even ways that their operators or planners and designers had even imagined they could.
In your opinion or in your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges we're going to face in hosting sporting events in the future?
Where we went to early with clients was more of the behavioral aspect of the guests and the athletes, the talent, the staff, it was all of that. And we said we have to kind of create new expectations for ourselves and our industries and our interactions that are really driven around behavior. Those will have data backups. Those will have science and analysis based backups that lead to implementing the safety protocols. But the easiest way to describe it to people is we just have to modify some behaviors. We have to modify patterns. There's been a lot of intriguing proposals about what maybe later 2021 things look like. Do you have a health check? Do you have a little passport, a health passport? Like there's a lot of things that have been thrown out. I don't know that we have the answer yet, but there are people trying to figure it out. And I think there's been some fantastic examples. I love kind of the Chappelle. He's been doing live events now since this summer, but he's sort of come up with a thing. We're gonna have these events. You show up, we're gonna test you, and then once you're in, you can feel comfortable because everybody in that room, at least on that night for those hours, is clear. And then that brings maybe a level of peace of mind, which allows you to greater enjoy the event.
One of the buzzwords that I keep coming across that I think the audience probably needs to know a little bit more about, because it's not really a buzzword, it's actually a real deal thing that we deal with, and that's resiliency design. So, what does resiliency design and planning look like in sport?
It means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I mean, resiliency means something different to the federal government, needs something different to to a coastal city versus a Dust Bowl city, or I should say Midwest city, to someone in the mountains versus uh, a business that makes its living off of natural resources. So what we talk about from resiliency though is all that. So we want to make sure we're dealing with climatic and environmental conditions. If you're on the coast, we have to think about sea level. We have to think about floods and storms. It could be no different than houses are designed to withstand hurricanes in Key West. That is a form of resiliency planning. I think some people might call it something different, but in our business, that's what we would call it. But resiliency planning also has to do with financial and operations. Like one of the great antidotes, maybe to bring that around another way, is when we, as AECOM, global company that exists in a variety of different areas and services, when we shut down our North American operations, I asked someone in our organization, like, what's this all about? Like, what are we doing? Are we worried about infection? What is it? He said, no, it's about the resiliency of our business. We are a company that preaches that and provides that service to cities, governments, states, business, whoever it might be. But we have to be there to perform for our clients. Everything from, we kind of talked about in your intro, like bubble protocols for sport. I think social distancing, disinfection protocols is a form of resiliency. I think now people are going to be better prepared. This whole issue of sort of contactless and frictionless, I think, is another form of resiliency planning. You think about a lot of the issues that really hit us hard in live entertainment, in some ways were because we weren't ready. Like everything, like if all my water comes from drinking fountains, well, drinking fountains are horrible in a pandemic. Or toilets that you have to reach and flush, like all of that stuff promotes the spread of a disease, which makes it harder to operate the facility safely. But if you can convert some of those simple things, or UV lighting in certain storage rooms where that form of disinfection is able to be functional and appropriate, is another form of resiliency planning. I think a lot of operators and facility maintenance staff have gotten really familiar with in the last year are things that now we're going to file that away in our drawer and say, okay, if anything like this comes around again, or when it comes around again, we've already got the playbook. I mean, some of the work we did for ASM Global in support of their venue shield, like that in and of itself is a resiliency document. Like it's for their buildings and their cities and the people that they're in partnership with. But a lot of the tenets of that could also be viewed through this lens of resiliency, because they know what to do if they have to shut a building down and they bring it back online. If that building was an alternative care facility and now it needs to be a football stadium, if it was a morgue and it needs to be a basketball arena, or vice versa, like all those things, how do we do it? Now we at least kind of have the roadmap for what that looks like.
One of the great things about the buildings of AECOM is the teams you all put together to kind of launch a project. And one of the cool things I learned in the past year that I can't believe I didn't know is your team of certified industrial hygienists. Could you talk about what certified industrial hygienists are and why they're important to the future of our events?
The CIH profession, um, they're health professionals. They're not doctors. It's a educated, trained area of expertise. We also pair that with our biohazard engineering, which again, you have folks who are sort of standard MEP engineers. For those folks, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers. But the biohazard is a specialty of that. No different than you have a general practice doctor, that's an MEP engineer, and then you have a heart surgeon, that's the biohazard engineers. They're very, very specialized. What industrial hygiene folks, and heretofore, there are people who work in like clean rooms, food processing plants. What they do is help sort of bridge the divide between approved EPA approved chemicals, cleaning cleaning and disinfection protocols and procedures, sort of evaluating industry research and saying, hey, this is what's out there. We have this situation. Maybe it's a germ, a disease, a virus, whatever the case may be. How do we protect against that? If there's a spill, what's the right way to clean it? What are the protocols for that? So those two groups, the CIH and the biohazard folks, were very familiar kind of in this world, and what they've been able to do as it relates to sport and entertainment clients is translate a new lexicon, things that athletic trainers and TV broadcast and stadium operators and food and beverage operators and all the people that are part of this wonderful ballet that is live entertainment, how do each one of those roles need to interface or make sure they got the right chemicals, or hey, there was a time where there was a certain disinfectant that was in very short supply because it was needed by the medical community. Well, okay, we know what that is, we know what it's made of. How do we source other things that are in greater supply that can function the same way? What's that recipe look like? How do we put these three ingredients together to get a different form of chocolate chip cookies? The CDC, like one of the terms that I had stumbled on early on that really helped our sports clients is I said they're like a CDC whisperer for you. You read those guidances or you see the news reports or you go on the website, a lot of that is Greek. And what they will do is they'll take that and they'll translate it to you in something that's applicable to what you want to do. Or when the CDC came out and said, "Oh, we're okay, nothing's on horizontal surfaces," like, no, 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 that's not what it said. This is what it said, and this is how it will apply to your stadium, your arena, your training room, your weight room, whatever it might be. This is what you need to do. Don't just think you don't have to worry about it anymore. So there were lots of those conversations that were, super ongoing, but then helpful because stadium operators need to be good at operating stadiums, housekeeping staff, food and beverage. They don't need to learn this, and they're not experts in it. And so what the CIH team did was allow us to bring that expertise to our clients in a really sports centric way.
I think the awareness and understanding is a lot better in sports. But one of the things that when you were talking, I thought about is, how do we take what we're talking about today and actually make it actionable or useful for event managers? Are there things that they should include on these event checklists that we weren't thinking about a year ago, but probably should in years to come?
We saw this a lot with the basketball bubble is the notion of your script and your schedule. What does the event day look like? You're doing rehearsals, like, big events like the Super Bowl is coming up, and you think about like a typical NFL stadium hopefully has 4 field tunnels and the people going by each other and the crush of folks in that tight space. But in the COVID area, we're not saying that you can't have that tunnel used by multiple people, but you might want to have the American flag go off first before whoever's coming back out. You may not want those people in the tunnel at the same time. Instead of maybe having one event staff entry, you may have to say, look, we're going to use the whole 360-degree footprint of the facility and bring people in a more spaced out, distanced way, either to manage the crowd. Maybe you're doing testing. Maybe, like I say, there's this different kind of screening, but you'll want to think about what the event schedule looks like in a way that provides a little bit more breathing room for all the things that happen down in Wide World of Sports for basketball. The one big thing that we really had to manage was time. Hey, if you're going to be in this gym practicing, we need these people you got to be here to there. You got to be through this area at this time because there's another group that's coming that same way. And we got to provide a little bit of time. We got to provide, opportunity for the environment to sort of dissipate, whatever, a little bit of air change. Or, hey, we're in this room, we're going to clean it. The room needs to settle. You can come in. Like everything just became not that you practiced any differently or you worked out any differently, but the time and the scheduling and the sequence became a lot more choreographed and a lot more precise than maybe it would normally be.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, John?
Write every letter in pencil right now. We don't know enough to know that you should write it in permanent ink. I think we're still a ways away from really knowing what the true impacts or modifications, if any, will be required for some of these buildings and spaces. So it may just be, kind of be patient, be flexible, be willing to change, because I think we're going to see a fair amount of change in the coming months and years for sure, until we get to a place where again the market will correct itself and we'll figure out what that new normal wants to really look like.
There's little things that anybody, no matter how much budget you have or don't have, that you can do to help keep events alive. So,
Right.
with that being said, John, it was a pleasure to discuss your thoughts today about the future of sporting events. And, um, I love you. So, thank you so much and go Bobcats.
Thanks, Christina.